Hey, hello there, and welcome to Talking with Tony. You might say, well, what's new here on Talking with Tony on this episode? We're in season 14. For the first time, we do not have an Ohio State Buckeyes football jersey on. It's too cold right now. I've got New York Rangers hockey jersey on. Chris Kreider, one of the greatest American players currently in the game. Where we are filming, I'm Tony Jones. I'm in Auburn, Alabama. I've got Danny Arp as my guest tonight. He's in Lagrange, Georgia, and Jake Barton's our producer in Noonan. We have a cold snap that's come through here, and we're not accustomed to this kind of stuff, although last Christmas, I remember, was very cold. So that's why I'm in this hockey sweater jersey. Danny, you looking very much like University of Georgia there in the background, although, unless I'm mistaken there, was a kind of a painful memory that's over I guess, your left shoulder there.
Yes, it definitely was a painful memory. We took Jana to the game. And of course, if you remember, we won. We charged down the field with my guy, Aaron Murray. I mention that every time on the show. And he made a great pass. I still say Rick should have called a timeout, but he made a pass, got tipped by one of those Alabama linebackers. And we caught it inbounds. Chris Conley did, and the time ran out. It was a bad moment. But the last 2 years, I'm feeling like I can put it up now. I can get over the moment,
Some demons have been exercised for sure.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
We're going to talk a lot of college football on the show. I would be remiss if I didn't open up, just congratulate our frequent guest, Will Smith, who made history. The Texas Rangers won the World Series just last night, actually, as we filmed this. And Will's done the show 15 times probably through the years. And he became the first player in any of the major sports. I've just been saying baseball the last few days. And then someone else researched it today and figured out it's never happened in NFL, NHL, NBA either. Someone has won 3 straight championships playing for 3 different teams. So 3 consecutive World Series winners for him with 3 different teams. So there's people out there got to be saying right now, whether you're a Cleveland fan, Colorado fan, Atlanta fan, Yankee fan, I'm saying, sign the guy next year. He'll be 35. We're going to win the World Series and put him on the roster. I mean, that is kind of crazy, Danny, when you think about it. 3 consecutive World Series championships, all with 3 different teams.
That is nuts, man. I mean, again, leave it to you to come up with a great stat like that. But, that's hard to believe, man. I gave up. I tried to watch a little of the Braves. And then when they lost, I didn't watch any more baseball after that.
And a lot of people were that way, unless like us, and we know Will personally. And my Yankees were not even in the playoffs, but that it is a historic thing. And Texas spent some money a couple of years ago when they brought in Seager and Simeon, and they DeGrom this year, even though he was hurt and didn't do a whole lot for them. So we'll be curious to see what happens with the Rangers moving forward. And I'm glad that Will was reunited with Bruce Bochy, who he had thrown with the Giants. But that's baseball. I want to tell everybody next week's going to be kind of a fun thing. I'm leaning right now towards having 2 shows next week. One show is definitely with Brandon Hughes. Just had a book come out. It's called The Fourth Prisoner. It's available on Amazon. Check it out. It's the second book in this series about Barclay Griffith. The first one was The Hero Rules. He was in studio with me when we previewed The Hero Rules. The Fourth Prisoner, I've read both of them. The Fourth Prisoner is actually better than The Hero Rules, and The Hero Rules was pretty good. Danny, last time you were on, you were stoked that we were getting real close to the Rolling Stones releasing their most recent album. You'd heard a couple of sneak previews of some songs. Now that you've been able to hear even more, what are your feelings? What are your thoughts?
Hey, I mean, does it go back to Beggar's Banquet or Let It Bleed? Maybe not that good, but it is a great album. I mean, the first time I heard it, I guess I listened to it the first time through. My first assessment was it's a great album. It's a fun album. Would it knock your socks off? Maybe not, but I've probably listened to it 10 times since, and it's fantastic, man. I love it. My favorite song on there is called Live by the Sword, right? And the sort of way I've done it. And it's a great song. Jagger really sounds like Mick Jagger. And the great thing is it was the last song they recorded before Watts died. So he's actually on that song. And so it's great. Yeah, check it out, man.
What we touched on this just a little bit last time, but you just don't have a band that remains together like they did. Watts until his death, and we're not talking about a guy who died when he was 40 or 50.
Yeah.
And you have like a Ronnie Wood's been in the band forever, since I think goes back to the 70s, and then 2 originals still left in in this band. I don't know really how Keith is alive, but he's alive. I mean, like Jagger is. Yeah, I mean, they're phenomenal, Danny. That their longevity is just amazing.
Look, he's still doing it too, man. Keith, he every album he gets his own song. He gets to put at least one on there that he wrote and sang. And this one is called it's "Tell Me Straight" is the name of it. He still got it, he still does it. I got a Keith playlist of just his songs, and I had to add that one to it, so it's good.
When you were on, I mentioned, how much I like As Tears Go By. And that's kind of strange, I think, for some people to say that's a song from the 60s, and that would be my favorite song. And it was theirs, but they gave it away. But I've had a couple of people, and you are actually one of three that come to mind immediately that have commented since I saw that. They went back and I made reference on the show to them doing that song 10, 12 years ago and talked about, they just looked like they had that night on that stage, like a new, more of appreciation for that song, speaking of longevity in itself and all. And I just like the look that each one of them gave to each other during the performance and at the conclusion of it and all. It's a gem of a song. And it's a song, if you listen to what 60s on 6, maybe on XM radio or something like that, you will hear. They still play that song. But that's my favorite Stones song. But you shared also some songs that kind of were hidden under the crevice. Maybe for me, you were of course a big Stones fan, knew all about them, and you had me listen to segments of these songs and all. One of them just was perfect for like a road trip. It was 3 songs listened to consecutively and all. And I even have more of a graver appreciation because some of these songs might not have been the chart busting, start me up, big time hit, but the way that you manufactured those for me to listen to in that order, it was pretty significant, and it made it even more enjoyable.
Look, I mean, I'm working on an actual playlist of doing something like that, right? Or writing something about it, because they put their albums together. Albums are great, and then they got these little 3-song runs. Like I told you, I call them mini albums,
Uh-huh.
And Since You was from Voodoo Lounge, which again, to think that they came out with that in 1994 after As Tears Go By in 64 you and I talked about, or 65, something like
64, 65, yeah.
30 years later. And then those 3 I sent you, just so your viewers will know, I mean, it's Out of Tears, which is a ballad, I Go Wild, and Brand New Car. Those 3 are awesome, man. Right in a row.
But if they need to listen to them in that sequence, though.
Oh yeah, you gotta listen in that order. Yeah, you gotta listen to them right when you start a road trip. Crank those 3 up, and you'll be rocking, man, by the time you get going.
Yeah. So what I did, folks, just for a reminder, is I listened to Out of Tears, I Go Wild, I Got a Brand New Car. And I felt like I was on like a road trip. Now, look, he had a lot of recommendations: Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street. There's all worthy to choose. But I really would like the viewers to check out Out of Tears, I Go Wild, I Got a Brand New Car, and that. And I think that is perfect for, firing yourself up for a good old road trip. And then you can hit repeat, listen to them again.
You can just listen to the whole album because it's a great album too, They would recognize, the hits off of that album, right? I mean, everybody knows Love Is Strong. You Got Me Rocking. That's been in a million commercials. Blinded by Rainbows. Through and Through was on that album, which is big. That really made a comeback during The Sopranos. I don't know. Season finale, Sopranos, season 2 finale, Through and Through is how they ended it. It was just amazing, man. If you like Sopranos, which I do.
It's funny that back when The Sopranos were airing, we had a lot of college kids in and out of the house, and I was telling them about how much I loved Journey and Don't Stop Believing. They didn't even really know what I was talking about. When they used it on The Sopranos, they were like, "That song's amazing. I love that." And I'd go like, "Yeah, okay. You needed a little push there to get you over the edge." Sopranos. Danny had planned on doing this, and we'll have to get through the football a little bit quicker than I'd planned. But if you're on that proverbial island that we sometimes talk about, and you can't have but 3 songs, 3 Rolling Stones songs. We'll let you have some other artist songs. But what 3 Rolling Stones songs are you taking with you?
Oh, man, dude. I'm definitely taking Sway, which is from Sticky Fingers. That's fantastic. I'm probably taking Out of Tears, which is the one we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
And then, man, you got me going. I guess I'd probably have to take Loving Cup from Exile on Main Street.
Okay.
Those 3 would be my favorites, at least as of today. I mean, it might change tomorrow. Those are great.
You don't go with too much mainstream there, do you? I mean, you could have
No. I mean, The other ones I could sing myself, Satisfaction. I could sing that.
And what did my song listen to the night that you saw them in Atlanta when they had the fan vote?
That was She's a Rainbow.
Yeah, and that's a good song. I mean,
it's a little weird. They were trying to keep up with the Beatles a little bit, but it's a great song. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the Beatles did not have their longevity, did they? They had prominence, but maybe not the longevity. Yeah. Also, I want to talk just for a few minutes about Killers of the Flower Moon. John Perkinson's our film critic. I'm going to have him in a show here in a couple of episodes. Danny, I went and saw this movie, and I know you like DiCaprio and De Niro and Scorsese. I thought this movie was just fabulous. This is my pick right now for Best Picture Academy Award. I definitely have Oppenheimer up there, pretty close to it. And there's a movie called Past Lives that is available for streaming right now that is pretty outstanding in its own right. The thing about Killers of the Flower Moon, it was 3 hours and 26 minutes long. But I can tell you this, there wasn't a part of that movie that I felt like, well, they shouldn't have included that. It was hard to watch at times, the subject matter. It was difficult, but it was worthy. And I think a guy like Jesse Plemons comes in more than halfway. The movie's more than halfway done when he comes in. But I can totally see him win Best Supporting Actor for the role. Wow. Yeah, the role that he got. And, he was determined to figure out what was going on with these murders. But and I know that you haven't seen it, but can you imagine Danny sitting through a 3 hour and 26 minute movie? I mean, that's not even counting preview time.
No, I couldn't imagine that. I mean, like I told you, I don't go to the movies. I watch everything at home, but I would definitely have to pause that a little bit, and take some bathroom breaks, food breaks. But yeah, I can't wait to see it, but I don't have time to get out to the movies, man.
Apple will have the rights once it is streaming. Apple will have the rights. You got a favorite DiCaprio movie?
DiCaprio, yes, I do. And I've got to say, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to me was fantastic. I thought he was so good in that. I like all his movies, but that one just blew me away. Another great Rolling Stone song, Out of Time, when he and his new lady from Italy turned the corner in the airport there, and nobody's there to take their picture, just to show you how crappy of a star he was. But that's a great role, man. He did great in that one.
Unlike you, I do go to the movies at least twice a week, maybe sometimes even 3 times a week. De Niro, I have a lot of respect for. We've used the word already, longevity, but you talk about his career, certainly that warrants. What about a favorite De Niro movie?
Favorite De Niro got to be Goodfellas. The best De Niro moment ever. He looks over there. He says, "You insulted him a little bit." And I don't know if you remember that from Goodfellas, but that was great. And then the other one is Cape Fear. I thought he was outstanding in Cape Fear, man. That movie rocked me.
Okay, that's the second Cape Fear. That would be the remake, not the Robert Mitchum.
Yeah, the remake.
Yeah, Robert Mitchum is the so-called bad guy in the original, and he was brilliant in that. But De Niro, the more recent, I guess that probably was sometime in the 90s, probably.
I think that was around 94. Yeah, 93, okay. 94, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But if you haven't seen the original, and I'm really speaking to the viewers here, check out that original. Most people have seen the remake. Movies frustrate me at times now because there's so little new material coming out. You'll go out and see these Marvel movies that are selling so well that they'll keep just doing all kind of whatever the Marvel deal, and are we something part 10, and I could just go down the list. So it's nice when we get new material, something new. My joke is, does anybody in Hollywood ever write anything new anymore? I'm going to make an admission here that I never thought I was going to do. Why? I'm certainly no Swiftie. Tara and I did go see that Eras Tour Taylor Swift thing, and I didn't really listen to any Taylor Swift music before. The only Taylor Swift I really ever heard is when she sang "As Tears Goes By" with Mick Jagger on stage with the Rolling Stones. I do have more of appreciation for Taylor Swift than I had. She's a tremendous entertainer. She's probably the most influential person in America. Certainly, she makes a tweet, 65,000 people go register to vote. She puts up her boyfriend's jersey, and it becomes the #1 selling jersey. Goes up 400%. There were some songs like "You Belong to Me" and "Shake It Up." Shake It Off. I was aware of it. I really hadn't. She performed that performance that she puts on 3+ hours in her own right. And then she not only sings, but can play the guitar and play the piano. I like that. Those, whatever those so-called the boy bands of the NSYNC, Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
I appreciate them when they like grab the instrument and they play and sing and not just have the background. And while she did some of that, she also would play the guitar and play the piano. And I have respect for that.
Yeah, I mean, I got you. I like Taylor Swift, all right. Growing up, I mean, had two daughters that grew up in the house with me. I mean, I obviously heard a good bit of it. They didn't ever really turn into a Swiftie, but they liked it, And Allie and I, she's a big Stevie Nicks fan because of us, I'm sure. But, we were sort of comparing Stevie Nicks and what she did to, what Taylor Swift does. She sort of mesmerized the world, sort of the way Taylor Swift has. So, I don't know. New times, new person. You're not going to ever catch me at a Taylor Swift concert, I'll tell you that. But I did see, though, that was modern. I saw Bruno Mars before the Super Bowl in Atlanta. Uh-huh. That was incredible right there now. But again, that's a different story. So.
Now, do you know where he appears as a kid in a movie going back to the 90s? This would be early 90s, Bruno Mars.
I do know. No, what was it?
I'm going to let you think about it for a second. It's Nicolas Cage is the main person. Sarah Jessica Parker's in there. James Caan is in there as well. And it starts out in Vegas, but they end up over in Hawaii too.
Yeah.
So just think about that. And
I'm not going to know the name, but I know what you're talking about. Caan's a gangster or whatever, right? And Jessica Parker's his girlfriend.
Trying to get Sarah Jessica Parker to marry him like in a 2-hour movie, didn't know him at the start and all. So I think it's going to come to, we'll see when we wrap up the show. We got to get to picks, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to release Brian's picks first. Brian is 21-24 against the spread this year. He and Stormy Weathers, part of the panel, along with Danny, they are both under 500. Danny is not. Danny's doing very well. His back's probably hurting from carrying them. Danny is 33-27 against the spread. I am 33-21. I'm not part of the panel. I just give out a handful of picks each time. Sometimes it's similar games and sometimes it's not. But Brian, being 21-24 against the spread, has Syracuse -2.5. Notre Dame -3, Air Force -18.5. A lot of favorites here. FSU -21.5, Georgia -15, California +24, Washington -3, Alabama -3, Colorado +13.5, and the UCLA Bruins -2.5. In the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs -2.5, the Dallas Cowboys +3. The Cincinnati Bengals is his 5-star -2.5. I don't want to talk about 5 stars in too much depth because my guys didn't really deliver with their 5 stars last week. Brian decided not to pick on the Ohio State game. He must have liked the other side and was afraid of hurting my feelings. Or maybe he was like Danny last week who didn't want to pick the Georgia-Florida game because he was afraid he was going to jinx it. I don't know what he was afraid of, giving up the first score. Maybe every time I turned around, somebody could have posted on Facebook, this update, Georgia just scored again. Yeah. So now it's time to bring in Danny, and we'll give his half of his picks, and then we'll go over and see what Stormy's up to. Danny, 33-27 against the spread, doing exceptionally well this year, even if he's coming off a so-so week, still 6 games over 500. And that, folks, is a lot better than Scott Van Pelt, who was 37-39 this year for ESPN, and Stanford Steve, even worse than him. They're 2 so-called experts. Let's kick things off, Danny, with that Friday night special, as you sometimes say, Boston College and Syracuse. Syracuse at home, favored by 2.5.
I am going to go Syracuse -2.5 on that one.
The over-under there, Danny, this is no official pick here, but the over-under there is 51. Just off the top of the head, what would you say, under or over?
I would go under that. Yep.
Okay. Continuing on, Ohio State at Rutgers. And Ohio State, this is the one that Brian wanted to skip. Ohio State favored by 18.5 points when the college football playoff poll first was released. Ohio State is the nation's #1 team, and that's on the strength of the victories that they have this year, especially the home win against Penn State. Impressive win at Wisconsin. That's not an easy place to play either. And Notre Dame certainly is looking like the best 2-loss team in America. But they have to go to Rutgers, face former Buckeye assistant Greg Schiano, who's a really good football coach. How do you see it, Dan?
Hey, Rutgers is doing pretty well, actually. I mean, 6-2 record. You do have Ohio State coming out as the #1 ranked team. Ryan Day's got a lot of streaks going on as I looked it up. This will be one of your stat type deals. He's 34-0 against the big that's not named Michigan, which that might hurt your feelings a little bit. 36 straight over unranked teams. But I think they're going to try to prove that they deserve that #1 ranking. I'm taking the Buckeyes -18.5.
Danny, could it get to the end of the year again where Ohio State and Michigan are both undefeated and the loser not have to play the Big Ten championship game but still get in the college football playoff?
I think that, one, Ohio State's going to beat them this year. And two, I think the nonsense going on with Michigan in the news right now is probably going to cost them. So I think Ohio State wins that. I think Ohio State makes it. Michigan's left out, especially if you got a Washington or Oregon still hanging around.
Mm-hmm. And, man, watch out for the Ducks. They are just so impressive.
That's what I'm saying.
Notre Dame is playing at Clemson. Back in the 70s, Joe Montana rallied Notre Dame for a legendary victory at Death Valley, and they got away with that. I think it's 77, and they won the national championship. This is a Clemson team that is not like what we are accustomed to seeing. I believe they're 500 right now, 4-4. The line is only 3. This bothers me when the line is only -3 and you got a ranked team like this against a team that's coming in here with some losses. But you're my expert analyst in college football. How do you see it?
Well, I mean, Dabo is in trouble. I mean, he's standing strong. You know, he's riding his hit past history. They got the running back out. Shipley's out still, right? Last time I checked. So I don't know, man. I'm taking Irish -3. Now, I know the line is what it is. I just don't see it.
Okay. Air Force, we talked about how this is a good football team. Air Force got a really good football team. This is one of those rivalry games. Army's playing Air Force. I always include these, whether it's Army playing Navy or Air Force playing Army or Air Force playing Navy, I'm going to include. But they're favored by 18.5. Now, they've been good on the spread this season. How do you see this one?
I think the song Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, is in order.
Great place to start. Yeah.
It's in order of who is the best and the toughest, right? From least to best. The Army, you just send them out, they're going to take a bullet. You know what I'm saying? The Air Force has some precision to it. I'm going ahead and saying I like them. I like the 18.5. It's big, but I'm going Air Force -18.5.
Okay. So much attention gets paid to that Army-Navy game at the end of the year. I'm glad that we have some love for the Air Force Falcons here to include them.
Hey, it's great. I mean, they're sitting there 8-0, man. I mean, I don't care who you're playing. 8-0 is 8-0, right? So what are you going to do?
Speaking of undefeated, a team that has been money at cashing tickets on people that have been wagering on them is Florida State this season. Now, they're 21.5-point favorites when they go to Pittsburgh. But I will go ahead and tell you this. We'll give Stormy's picks in a little bit. That's its 5 stars, the Florida State Seminoles. Maybe haven't covered every week, but they've been close to doing it, and they have been what we call a money team. At Pittsburgh, not the same football team they've had the last couple of years.
No, Pittsburgh is up and down, right? And, of course, my pick for the ACC champion earlier in the year when we started off was Louisville, right? Mm-hmm. Still got a chance.
Oh, yeah.
They're about 13th in the college playoff poll. They win the next 3, they're in the playoffs, at least against probably this team we're talking about, FSU. Pitt's been okay to good at home. They did win their game against Louisville over 3 turnovers, but I'm going to go ahead and say they keep it closer than 21.5.
You like Pitt?
Yeah, I'm taking Pitt plus 21.5.
Okay, coming off a 58-7 loss to Notre Dame, which
I got it.
Yeah, but
look, up and down team, man. I mean,
we start over 0-0. Yeah. Nothing carries over from the week before. So, yeah, you could totally be right there. The Georgia Bulldogs are 15-point favorites at home against Missouri. Georgia was very impressive against the Gators.
Yep. Mizzou's played us tough. Last year was one of the scariest games I've been through in a while. They've always played us tough. They, I still remember watching them in the SEC championship game when they took it, and I think it was their second year in the SEC. Anyway, that's my 5-star pick. Dogs -15.5. Or
like
15 now. Yep. And that's my 5-star. Put it down.
I wouldn't mind seeing it myself because, as you know, I've already gone over 6.5 wins on the season for Missouri. Now, that is good handicap. I will sometimes play down myself on some of my successes, but when you've taken a team to go over 6.5 and you're already over the number and we've got this much football left, that's a pretty good pick right there.
That's a great pick, man. I told you right away. That was a great pick. I knew they had good defense. But, I mean, they're coming to Sanford this year. Last time, 21, they came to Sanford. They came in not the way they are now, playing as well as they are now. They got demolished. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about 3 touchdowns.
I think maybe either the time before, all these years run together, it might have been a competitive game in Athens. But and I'm not choosing this game, but I think you're on the right side there. California and Oregon. Now, Brian, who lives out in San Francisco, and Berkeley is right there at him. He goes to these Cal games, so he took Cal plus 24. Now, I don't know. I mean, he's not going to go to Oregon, but Oregon by 24. I mean, eventually they have to fall off a little bit, was his thoughts, because they have just been producing like crazy. They beat you last week because you had Utah, and it was 35-6. It was pretty brutal. So are you going to go with the Ducks, or are you going to stick, and take go against them again?
Look, they destroyed my 5-star pick last week, and I did not see it coming. I'm going to have to go like Brian, man. They got to drop off a little at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like Cal's been. I don't know. They've been pretty bad, but they've been okay at home. So I'm gonna take 21. I'm gonna take 24 points and go with it.
Danny, it's hard for me to say without laughing, but Bo Nix is a Heisman Trophy candidate right now. Like, he's a contender.
He legitimately is in the running for that, man. Especially with Caleb Williams. We'll talk about that in a minute, but he's definitely the front runner if you ask me.
All right, so let's pause for a minute now and do Stormy's, because we're about to have it. Stormy is 16-19 against the spread coming off his worst week. He likes Syracuse -2.5, Ohio State -18.5. There are a lot of favorites here with these two, with Brian and Stormy. Notre Dame -3, Air Force -18.5. I teased it a little while ago. Stormy's 5 stars, Florida State -21.5. He's got Missouri +15 against the Dogs. I don't think he picks the Dogs regardless, because he's a Georgia Tech fan, so I think he goes against them each time. He's got Oregon -24, Washington -3, the Crimson Tide of Alabama -3, Oregon State -13.5, UCLA -2.5. His 3 NFL plays are the Kansas City Chiefs -2.5, the Philadelphia Eagles -3, and the Cincinnati Bengals -2.5. So that's Stormy's picks. We'll now go back with you, Danny. We dropped off at Washington and Southern California. Washington favored by 3.
Yep. Have you ever seen anybody look like Caleb Williams in the last couple of games when they are as good as he is? It's crazy, man. I don't think you can get it back on track yet. I mean, I'm going with Washington -3. That was almost a good 5. I was going to take that as my 5-star, but
they were in trouble at home against Arizona State. And once they got past that night, they had an interception return for a touchdown. That might be their one test that they had to, come. Defense gave up a lot of points to Stanford last week, who's not an football team. So they look for that game to be very high scoring with Washington and Southern California. Alabama is favored by 3 against LSU.
All right. Payback time for Saban after that nonsense last year. They've looked good. I still can't believe they lost to Texas. I'm taking Bama -3. I think all the Bama boys picking up their sisters and heading to the game. So
I got to tell you that I have a feeling about LSU there. It's not one of my picks, but I have a feeling about them. Colorado is getting 13.5 points at home against Oregon State. And this game will be watched because it's Dion. So
we're all going to watch it. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And if they can just manage to pay, if they manage to pay attention for the whole game, they'll actually cover this. So I'm taking Colorado +13.5.
All right, I've got a similar pick. That is one of my picks, and I'll release all of mine here shortly. UCLA, the Bruins, one of my favorite. Bruin leaning up against that L, like I love him. You like UCLA laying the 2.5, or Arizona, who's been a really good team at home?
They have been good at home, coming off a big win against Oregon State, but we'll see. I'm taking UCLA for nothing but the logo, -2.5.
And they do play good defense, which is so strange. Chip Kelly's team better defensively than offensively. Those 3 NFL games, Danny, I want you to choose them as well. The Dolphins and the Chiefs, that's an early start for everybody. It's 9:30 a.m. Eastern time over there, and your Chiefs favored by 2.5.
I'm going Chiefs -2.5.
Maybe Jake can find us the KC with the arrow, the old arrow that they would have with the Chiefs. That would be pretty cool. The Cowboys and the Eagles favored by 3.
Eagles 3-0 at home. I think they're going to be 4-0 at home after this one. Eagles -3.
So right now you're in complete agreements with Stormy on the first 2. Then the Cincinnati Bengals are favored by 2.5 over the Buffalo Bills. This is a Sunday night game, which, of course, last year was the DeMar Hamlin contest, which was
right.
Monday night football. We're so pleased that he is doing so well. So there's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a very emotional contest there. How do you see this?
Emotions set aside. I think the Bengals -2.5 got it. Burrow looks like he's back and better than ever. And they've been covering. They destroyed me. I didn't think they could do it against 49ers, but that impressed me. So I'm going with them.
Okay. All right. So we will run down all of Danny's picks here, and we have just a few more minutes left on the show. I am 33-21. Time to release my picks. I'm going with the Ohio State Buckeyes -18.5 at Rutgers. I think that this game will be tight for a while. I've been really pleased with Ohio State's defense. They're one of only 3 teams in the country that haven't given up a play of 40 or more yards this season. Notre Dame, I'm going with -3. The screams trap to me, like we're falling in the trap here. But I'm going with the Irish -3. I love the leprechaun, getting ready to fight. I'm on Maryland +9.5 at home against Penn State. I watched every down of the Maryland-Ohio State game earlier this year in Columbus and was really impressed with Maryland's effort. I think this will be a really good football game, a tight game. I think it's going to be a one-score game. Penn State probably gets out of there with a victory, but I think it's going to be a very competitive game. Over in Nashville, Auburn will have as many or more fans than Vanderbilt will have. I will say that one of my picks is the alma mater -12.5. I'll go with Auburn. Originally, I was going to go with Oregon State, and I started thinking about this more and more, and I flipped to Colorado. So I'm on Colorado +13.5 points. I think this game will be much closer, and Oregon State, I hate to take a shot at DJ, but I watched them the last couple of games, and they have been too inconsistent. I will go back to my UCLA Bruins and my Bear leaning up against the L -2.5. I love this guy. I tell you what, if I could find a stuffed animal like that, I'd put him up on the mantle by the stuffed monkey that I have. I'm going in the NFL with a little special pick, the Baltimore Ravens -5.5. And yes, I am a Dallas Cowboy fan, but I do like the Cowboys in this spot against the Eagles +3. I think the secondary for Dallas is going to have to play their best game of the year, and that says a lot when you don't have your best defensive back available because of injuries, because the Eagles, whenever they're 3rd and 8, they find a way to get it to one of their studs. A.J. Brown really, really scares me. I've got to do 2 English Premier picks. We're undefeated. We're 1-0-1 in soccer this year. We're doing just fine. I like Sheffield United to win or draw their game Saturday. That's -110 that we're going to need Sheffield United. And I'm taking the over 3.5 in Manchester City against Bournemouth. Okay, so those are the 2 English Premier picks. I might be 1-2-1 this time next week, but we're 1-0-1 right now, going with Sheffield United to win or draw. That's an even line at -110, and also an even line at -110 to over 3.5 goals for Manchester City and Bournemouth. So that's my picks. Let's run down Danny's picks in case you're just now joining us. He's our lead analyst. He's 33-27 this year. Syracuse -2.5, the Friday night special. Ohio State -18.5. Notre Dame -3. Air Force -18.5. He likes Pittsburgh at home catching 21.5 points. His 5-star this week is the Georgia Bulldogs -15. California +24. I kind of like the logic that he's got there. Oregon just can't play to the level that they're playing at every single week, or can they? Washington is -3. Alabama -3 is also his next 2 picks. He's with me with Colorado +13.5, so maybe you should bet Oregon State -13.5. But I think he and I see this the same manner, that it's going to be a good competitive game. Colorado may not win, but they'll be in it for 4 quarters. He agrees with me on UCLA -2.5. Danny's been pretty good in the NFL, and he's got all favorites. The Kansas City Chiefs in the morning game -2.5, the Philadelphia Eagles -3, and the Cincinnati Bengals in what will be an emotional contest -2.5. Final thoughts on the selections, Danny?
No, I like them. I think I feel pretty good about mine this time. I think we're going to bounce back from last week's. I was definitely disappointed, but I think we'll bounce back.
Danny, I'm 33-21 on the season against the spread. You are 33-27. It is so shocking for me to see somebody like Scott Van Pelt be 37-39, and his other expert, Stanford Steve, worse than him. And then on their guys on the Daily Wager not doing any better either. And yet we sit 6 games ahead of 500 and 12 games ahead of 500.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, I hope, I felt like I told you on the phone. I think you jinxed me a little bit talking about it, but we don't believe in jinxes around here. So I think we both extend our leads on those guys this week.
Okay. Danny, I really appreciate it. There is good news as far as movies go. I want to drop this in. The Boys in the Boat, one of the best books that I've ever read, will be in movie theaters Christmas this year. And this is about, you think about University of Washington, you might be thinking about Michael Penix and the Washington football team this year, but this is about their rowing team that won the NCAA, won a championship, which qualified them to compete in the Berlin Olympics, and about their road there to gold. It's worth reading. It was a great read, and it's going to be an outstanding movie as well. Danny, I always thank you for the time.
Hey, I appreciate the invite. I always have a blast on here talking to you. And, it's always fun to watch you. You've always been a great sports picker, and I put a lot of faith in that. So I feel like you and I picked a decent number together this time, so you won't get too big a lead on me.
Well, I just hope to hang on to the lead, because Danny does his homework, he does his research, and we're fortunate to have him as part of the family here on Talking with Tony. That's all the time we have for Jake Barton in Noonan, Georgia, Danny Arp in Lagrange, Georgia. I'm Tony Jones in Auburn, Alabama. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.